think here in the UK, there's a bit people are a bit too much sport for choice. Sort of come to the realization that it's like a passion project. But I realized what that does it ends up creating a divide between what people see as local music.
Hello, welcome to No Fun Time Magazine's Under the Void Deck. Today we are in conversation with Darius Oon from indie and alternative rock band The New Modern Lights.
The New Modern Lights started way back in 2015, so we're actually all like secondary school friends. And so when we started out, we're literally just playing in like school events, Teachers' Day events, graduation ceremonies, stuff like that. And at first, we're just playing covers, which I think is like the origin of a lot of indie rock bands. You start playing covers by The Strokes, Arctic Monkeys, and sort of these guys. But yeah, we sort of decided to continue playing together after school. So we made our way through the Singapore music milestones as they are. We got into Baybeats, we got into Noise. And yeah, we've sort of continued since. Obviously now we're on a bit of a hiatus as it is because I'm here and it's a bit difficult to play together. For the New Modern Lights, we've sort of come to the realization that it's like a passion project. Because like in terms of like people who are actively involved in music, it's only myself and my brother who plays keyboards in the band. So he's also, he went to study music and is doing sort of music as a profession. And then myself here in the UK. So I actually have another band that is sort of like the main project, Coming Up Roses. So we are based in the UK now. We're originally from Singapore as well, but we moved together to the UK. New Modern Lights, I think, is just sort of like our escape. We just do it for fun, just friends, no pressure at all. But I think it's good to have both sides of the coin. We're still proud of it, but definitely the sound has changed. I think in some ways we've sort of developed like the harmony a bit more because I guess we've gone to music school, learned some fancier chords. But in a way, I think the essence of the songwriting still exists as like a through line through all the material. I think lyrically, thematically, we sort of stuck to the same sort of themes, which I guess is a good way of like unifying, material. In New Modern Lights, I'm basically the primary songwriter. Though usually when it comes to like the arrangement of the whole song, we do it together as a band, like just jamming it out in the rehearsal studio. In Coming Up Roses, Emily, who's the lead singer and the bassist, and myself, the two of us sort of co-write. We've released 2 EPs already, releasing a third EP in about a month's time in April. Yeah. The best way to put it is either you're a big fish in a small pond or you're a small fish in a big pond. I mean, obviously it's super different, but I think what I've come to realize is that like the indie music scene in Singapore is actually in a way very unified. Like there's always a lot of people at gigs. Like when we did the gig at Phil Studio, it was pretty full. We sold over 100 tickets, and this is just like a small venue, not like with proper funding or anything. We just sort of booked the venue out ourselves, sold tickets. But people turned up, and sometimes I think here in the UK people are a bit too much sport for choice because there's so much going on. And what happens is you end up having like 20 people at a gig. Whereas in Singapore, usually at an indie gig, it's pretty much sold out or at least looks full. So I think in that way, the indie music scene in Singapore is unified in that way. Like a lot of people will come together. The people who are interested are genuinely interested to see the bands grow. It's just that the amount of people who are interested is a much smaller pool. Obviously, for the UK, we are still very new here. So we've only been here since end of 2022, so just over like a year. And we're still finding our way through the industry. But, I think the great thing is that there's a lot more sort of steps that you could go up. Whereas I think in Singapore, you hit the ceiling pretty fast. You play Baybeats and then you're sort of like, that's it for within Singapore. Then you have to start looking at, regional festivals or tours and stuff like that. But whereas in the UK, it's like, you can go all the way to, I don't know, Glastonbury or something like that. So it's very different. I think that it's pros and cons for both situations. But I mean, we moved here because we wanted to sort of make a career out of the band, which is obviously super, super difficult in Singapore. It's just that the audience is not big enough. Well, okay, firstly, I think, yes, in a way the government does need to try to support like local acts a bit more, like in terms of like funding. I always look at like the Korean music industry, right? Like now we see K-pop as this huge thing, but the truth is that it's actually a government funded project from like 2 decades ago. And it's only now that it's sort of like become privatized, and then it's obviously a huge industry, a huge sort of cultural attraction for like tourists as well to come in Korea. So I think as Singapore, we should also aim to do something similar. Obviously not exactly the same, but sort of build that on that cultural capital. But that being said, I've also like sort of reflected, and I realized that I don't really like the idea of support local, because I think there's been this narrative throughout the years where they're always like, oh, support local music, support local music, support local music, right? And they're trying to drive this idea into people's minds. But I realize what that does, it ends up creating a divide between what people see as local music and music. And we always have this discussion like, oh, people see local music as being not as good, which is completely far from the truth. I think our local music can stand up to international music any day. But I think when you sort of segregate the idea of local music and music, in the subconscious mind, it feels like people see local music as being of a different quality or of just being different. So I think that's a discussion that needs to be had, because I think we can sort of promote local music more subliminally, through radio, through placements in TV, movies, things like this. We've only been playing in the UK for about a year, but then now we are like sort of ramping up in terms of like having gigs and releasing music. So this year, hopefully, we'll be quite busy and we have lots of stuff to do. For Coming Up Roses, is a lot of like interpersonal relationships, but also sort of introspective lyrics, I think. So it's a lot of focus on like internal emotions and struggles, and we speak about like mental health quite a bit in our songs as well. Thanks, I'm glad we were able to have this conversation, and I think it's cool to be like having more conversations about music in general, and taking also like a reflective approach, like seeing what has happened and then also like what can happen in the future.